Hello and welcome to the Anglian Flaneurs. We're wandering around the City of London again. It's a warm Thursday afternoon and I found myself near Bank Station on Lombard Street and we're at the site of Lloyd's Coffee House. Or I should say where Lloyd's Coffee House was between 1691 and 1785. And today we're going to do a deep dive into the history of Lloyd's Register, not to be confused with Lloyd's List or Lloyd's of London. I'll try to explain a little more about the differences between the three later in the vlog. But a common thread between the three, and there are lots of different threads, is that they were named after this 17th century coffee house in London that at the time was frequented by merchants, marine underwriters and others, all associated with shipping. The coffee house owner Edward Lloyd had helped them to exchange information by circulating a printed sheet of all the news he had heard. I've dropped in a couple of illustrations of what a coffee house in the City of London may have looked like in the 1700s. On our journey today, discovering the history of Lloyd's Register will take us across the City of London. We'll end up near the Tower of London in Great Tower Street. But first of all, we'll jump ahead in time a little and make our way onto Cornhill. And now we're at White Lion Court, that part of Cornhill that's very close to Leadenhall Street, Bishopsgate and Great Church Street. We're jumping a little forward in time, but this is where from 1834 Lloyd's Register was located, and it remained there until 1901 when it moved to Fenchurch Street. From 1797, Lloyd's Register book had been located in 4 Castle Court, Birchin Lane, which we've showed you many times before, and I've just dropped in a couple of photos from the internet of Castle Court, Birchin Lane, and of the site in White Lion Court. During the 1700s and early 1800s, very few London merchants had their own offices or counting houses. Instead, they transacted much of their business at the Royal Exchange at the end of Cornhill. We're now looking down Cornhill in the direction of the Royal Exchange and Tube Bank Station, and to our left we can see the church, St Peter upon Cornhill, and you might just be able to make out the famous pub, the Counting House. It's not the first time we've talked about coffee houses in the City of London. I will include in the description a link to a video I did a couple of months ago about tea and coffee houses in the city. The rival company of registers was based at 3 St Michael's Alley and then from 1812 at Old Broad Street. Now we turn the camera around and we're walking away from Cornhill and we've crossed over the road into Leadenhall Street and we'll look at Lloyd's of London. People often get confused as to the difference between Lloyd's of London, Lloyd's Register and Lloyd's List. Now, Lloyd's of London is basically an insurance and reinsurance market. Lloyd's Register is a technical and professional service organisation and maritime classification society. I hope that extremely brief summary of the differences helps in some way. Now let's explore the development of Lloyd's Register. In 1696, Lloyd decided to cater for this thirst for news by publishing entitled Lloyd's News 3 times a week. Lloyd's News had been passed down by Edward to his sons, but they failed to show much interest in the business, and soon the Lloyd's family became discontinued with the world of shipping. Edward Lloyd was succeeded by Thomas Jensen, who founded Lloyd's List in 1734. This paper, unlike the earlier Lloyd's News, was at first given entirely over to shipping intelligence, taken to be a sign of the growth of the underwriting business in Lloyd's. When the Society for the Registry of Shipping, which was to become Lloyd's Register, was founded in 1760, Samuel Saunders was the proprietor of the coffee house in Lombard Street. The reputation of the coffee house went into serious decline To the annoyance of respectable customers, gambling, speculation and stock jobbing escalated, leaving the society to procure new premises at No. 5 Pope's Head Alley in 1769. It may seem a little strange to go on about the history of Lloyd's Register when passing Lloyds of London, but it's the perfect background as the journey today takes us from Cornhill and Lombard Street over to Fenchurch Street and Great Tower Street. As we go on our way, we also see evidence of Bartholomew Fair, which we looked at in our recent Leadenhall Street and Aldgate video. We've now made it across Fenchurch Avenue bypassing Leadenhall Market, and we're now on to Fenchurch Street at number 71. When Lloyd's Register decided to move from White Lion Court in 1901, they moved, as we mentioned earlier, to 71 Fenchurch Street. But this is not the original building. We'll see that in a few moments. This is the modern update, the modern building for Lloyd's Register. And it is designed by Richard Rogers, and I particularly like the sculpture of the ship. We're extremely close to the famous pub, the East India Arms, that we've mentioned in previous vlogs. And there is a considerable amount of drinking and laughing going on, as befits a city pub on a late afternoon, early evening. Now let's get on to the modern day history of the Register. A vessel remains registered with Lloyd's Register until it is sunk, wrecked, hulked, scrapped or withdrawn from the register by the vessel's owner. Ship hulls are graded by a lettered scale, A being the best, and ship fittings, masts, rigging and other equipment are graded by numbers, 1 being the best. The register, with information on all sea-going self-propelled merchant ships of 100 gross tons or greater, is published annually. Now we've come to the original 71 Fenchurch Street building, which Lloyd's Register took possession of in December of that year. In order to complete the picture, I need to tell you a little more about Lloyd's list. We've explored Lloyds of London and Lloyd's Register, of course. Now, Lloyd's List is one of the world's oldest continually running journals, having provided weekly shipping news from London from as early as 1734. It was published daily until 2013, now is updated in a digital format since then. The designer and the architect of the original 1901 building was Thomas Colcott, who used elaborate decoration to achieve complexity and richness, and I think you'd say it contrasts strongly with the modern Richard Rogers building. Perhaps both fine buildings are buildings of their time. Not that I really know what this means, but from the literature, apparently Colcott's design was for an impressive classical stone palazzo in the 16th century Italian manner. In my total ignorance, I'd never have any idea that that was the style of the building, but I like the building anyway. Thomas Colcott's new building at 71 Fenchurch Street did much to change the fortunes of the area. It had been known as being a rather grimy mercantile district, but with this new prestigious organisation, it did much to uplift the fortunes of the area. One of the benefits of the Richard Rogers building was that it was able to provide archaeologists with a rare opportunity to examine a large area within the eastern part of the Roman and medieval city. The Museum of London Archaeology Service unearthed the first signs of occupation on this site, dating from the 1st century. The excavations took place between December 96 and June 97, following the demolition of Haddon House, Magpie House and most of Coronation House. some of the other original buildings were protected. We're coming near the end of our vlog now. We're just walking down Lloyd's Avenue, and we'll have a swing round and have one last look at it, and then we'll work our way right and end the vlog at Great Tower Street, which was the site of Edward Lloyd's first coffee shop in the City of London. Hope you've enjoyed the vlog and a deep dive into the name Lloyd and its history and the various different businesses associated with that name. And the one and most important point to take from the vlog is that it all started with a coffee. So it's goodbye from the Anglican Flaneurs. Hope to see you again soon.